Call the roll. The chair is here, Ms. Shelp is here, Mr. Satterfield is excused, Ms. Rye is here, Mr. Bailey is here, Mr. Mills is on the way. I guess we're going to need to add all these extra people now to our letterhead here for next time. Mr. Downs is here, and Ryan is here as well. We have proof of notice of the meeting. We did have some correspondence this month via email. A lady from a neighbor of 612 Arlington Street reached out to us about an interest in that property, and I responded to her. I think everyone on the board received a copy of the email. If anyone has anything else that they would like to add, I basically just told her we're working on a program that will facilitate that, the use of that property in the way that she anticipated, and we would let her know in the future when that comes about. All right, we don't have any public comment, but we do have a presentation. So today we've got Jim Ambrose from Tipping Point Development. Adelheid and I have met with him previously and given you guys a bit of a summary, but here they are in person to present and tell us more about the company and their approach to development. So thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I also brought along another local Morgantowner who's down the street, Brad Frankhauser with Desmond. He's done some of these projects with me so that you could get a sense of how they kind of go from the planning perspective, but then also the development side. So I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Brad Frankhauser with Desmond. I'm located here in Morgantown. Recently moved into the old Hampstead Williams and Shook building that still has the sign on it. But everyone looks at it and it's like, oh, it's just a bunch of attorneys still. That'll change soon. Appreciate the opportunity to come in. Like Jim said, we've been working on a lot of projects together and thought that might just be another resource set of eyes and how we've worked on some of these projects together throughout the state. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and our mission, look, at the end of the day, is to unlock a neighborhood's highest potential through transformative commercial development. We have 4 values: teach truth, transparency, and we only want to get involved in things that are transformational in nature. And that transformation is really defined by the community, not necessarily by us, by other developers. It's the people who live there. And what we're really trying to do in our long-term vision is just build places filled with possibility. And you know, we give you this graph because there's a cadence to how development typically goes whenever it's privately led. I think all who practice in the industry know that that's been disrupted a lot since 2020. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of back and forth with markets and finance and construction and everything like that. But, and again, there's nothing wrong with that traditional model, but what tends to happen in decision making, and anybody that's, you know, an engineer or an architect can appreciate it, is that a lot of times it's based off of that financial formula. And making sure that the project happens, but then what happens to the space. It's a reflection of what that financial decision was. So we're on a path to try to find a way to build the highest priority, highest quality spaces that can stretch the dollar as far as possible, but are in a priority that people want. A lot of times that's scary for any organization like your own, or a city, or economic development agency, but ultimately we take those data points and try to find the highest priorities and inject what those top 2 or 3 things would be, because you're going to get 45 of them. You're not going to jam them all into one project. That's where it's not financially feasible, but pick the ones at the site, and that's where you can find great architectural partners to you know, help you determine how to fit those things in early on to see if it has legs. But we'll create the real estate development plan around what the traditional financial formula is and how lenders are willing to lend on construction loans, which there's 2 principles to really remember, and that is that you can only take out a loan for as much as you get cash flow coming in, and that is a percentage of what that cash flow is, and your commercial property's value is really whatever the net operating income is. If you're looking to buy things that have 0 revenue generation, it's not usually worth what somebody's asking. And so it's important that you factor that in, because just because we put $40 million into a site doesn't mean that that building's going to be worth $40 million. It's really based off of what that cash flow projection is that you would create a financial model. But that's an important metric because if you're going to do the transformative change, you want to make sure that there's a funding source to make it long-term sustainable and not be an additional tax to the community. And typically by just doing those things, you end up getting a lot of alignment on the real estate development plan, and then you'll notice the last step is finding the right capital. That could be private capital, that could be public capital, but those priorities and having a mission-driven purpose early on that's through the lens of a greater population is ultimately what allows the capital to kind of come. I mentioned our values. We're not really doing anything differently than what practitioners are doing, other than just trying to reorder the steps as to when they happen and validate that we aren't proceeding with a transformative project until you know that you have a solid foundation, like the community input. But the words abstract to concrete are real big because that's how it feels. And the more abstract it is, whenever you're trying to make decisions, the more emotion is in it, and the harder it is to kind of advance to that next step. So, where we're really good, is basically getting it, or where I'm good is getting it from like there to here. And then I've been building a team of like construction professionals and stuff that can manage the project. Because once the plan's done, you're managing the plan. It's just creating that plan that's financeable is the tough thing. And it takes a long time, and it's messy, and you're gonna have like 50 iterations of that until you find the right thing that works. So that is kind of in a nutshell, without wasting up too much of your time, on how we go about doing things. And our culture is nobody goes create change, do it right. Like, it's really, really hard to do these things. I'm not doing it because I'm making a lot of money. I'm doing it because I believe in the mission. And like, we just won't work with clients or really stakeholders that have this huge ego to try to like, derail what is already really hard to do, because it will. If you have one bad person on the team from a decision-making perspective, it'll take the whole thing down. So some stuff where this method has played out with where it is. We were selected by the CVB to lead the Wheeling Gateway Center for right off of I-70 where the historic suspension bridge is. Right now, to date, there's been 11 capital sources on it, which is another important thing to determine if you're doing a community-driven project, is you're going to have a lot of sources to thread together. We're doing a $40 million project in Cleveland right now. It's the first investment in that neighborhood right next to the zoo in over 100 years. There's 10 different capital sources on that. We're in the process of doing the financial closing right now. And you'll notice like this Gateway Center, there's no cash flowing uses in this. This is purely like a public center. So that's the challenge with that one, whereas the other one's a multifamily apartment building. So the uses of the project, we're not like, oh, we're the multifamily people, we're the commercial. Like, we do it all because it's rooted into that method. And the building use is the use. It's just, working with your strong partners that are on the team to tie it all together. And then the one that really kind of has been hanging out there for a while is this 1400 Market Block in Wheeling. It was a city-owned property that was built in the late 1800s. For whatever reason, the community really loves the history of these things and have been trying to save them. It makes zero financial sense, like from a traditional investment standpoint. But we found a way to string all these impacts together that were really rooted in heavy community engagement by other organizations like Wheeling Heritage and others in the past, and create a cool job pipeline. But it's a 28,000 square foot property that has 13 capital sources and is going to cost almost $15.2 million when it's all said and done, with like $2 million of that budget being a new market tax credit structure with a historic tax credit structure. So you're just paying out all this money and like all these legal fees and attorney fees just to like do this project and link these sources together. So now if this were a 280,000 square foot project, those fees are still the same. So, what we learned here is that there is a project too small for those sources where it's probably not worth using those and finding a different one. Going back to like where finding the right capital is important. And this is just a quick study that I did for the city of Wheeling a long time ago. It led to a brownfield EPA grant. which we were then replaced by the EPA's consultant. But a good example of where we'll get involved in things on the journey kind of early on, and we don't necessarily need to do the full thing. But like we won't jump in here without knowing all this was done right. But if we start and they're like, look, we're good, we got it. Again, no egos, create change, do it right. Be my guest, because we can't be everywhere at once. But that's kind of tipping point in a nutshell. When I was introduced to Jessica and Allied through, I believe the unions first introduced you and me from another organization. I don't remember how we ended up getting connected through that. But
I think it was Chris Fletcher from UDV.
oh yeah, so Chris is doing all the work for the various cities, and so he got to see behind the scenes of 1400 of how we were linking all these sources together. I mean, it has HUD CBDG money on it, it has traditional debt, New Mark tax credit, historic tax credit, a Paul Green grant, ARC money for the nonprofit that's integrated into it, as well as HUD EDI money. So it's like every program that you could ever think of that West Virginia qualifies for, absent of AMLR, is like on this project. So it's been a real interesting journey to try to thread those together and make sure that you're compliantly spending those dollars in a way that those sources want to be spent. And typically it's a snowball effect on the capital structure. So in a nutshell, that's what we do, and you know, some projects that might be familiar with people here since they're local to West Virginia, but we cover, right now I go, you know, as far as Toledo. I'm doing a lot of early stage stuff in Western Pennsylvania. I'll take on like one owner's rep type of contract per year for like an industrial company because they're pretty easy, honestly, compared to this. And we've done stuff in South Carolina. I just sunsetted my entity in South Carolina because I like don't have anybody there to continue to do the work. But now getting pulled into the deep Appalachian parts of eastern Kentucky and then southwestern West Virginia. So every community, every neighborhood, even in a city, is different. You know, where you guys might be working, those needs and what that community wants could be totally different than what somebody wants, you know, up on the hill. So it really is unique to who those people are and why you're even doing it. If you don't have a why behind the project, I would recommend doing it. It's going to be hard. So that's my quick presentation rant. I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, I don't make decisions on the project. The stakeholders do. My job is to give everybody the information and they make the decisions. And so that's a clear distinction that I don't take owner equity into this. I don't guarantee debt. I don't take the properties off of people. I'm literally like the fee-based developer to get it to a point where it can happen. But ultimately, you know, the decisions are the people who I hold the contract with. So in this case, if you guys were doing something, you all would be making the decision after I give you all the information for you to make that decision on. I'll tell you the pros and cons of each, but ultimately I really don't take a hard line on anything other than what's best for the project. So.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. On like all the capital stack and threading all those things together, how do you deal with the timelines from each one of those organizations? Because they each all have different, like, we need money spent by this time or committed, or
Yeah.
How do you approach that? Like,
Yeah, typically you, like when you're at I'll just use this diagram. So like, when you're at like 0.5 and you're doing your really early stage concepts, there's really 3 things you need as a deliverable there. It's gross square footage, what are the rentable square footage areas by use, and like if you're doing multifamily, then what the total volumes are of like 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom, or commercial, how many bays are you breaking it up into? That's enough to be dangerous to create a quick hit dirty financial model, and then kind of project out based off of those sources and where you are in that moment in time annually, which source might be the first to spend.
Okay.
The problem with 1400, the mistake that was made 3 years ago, is you were trying to close on all those sources at the same time and have the full thing to the table, when in reality, to your point, you should have taken them down incrementally, because then each time you made the other one sort of compliant and go away, it only made it easier for the next one to be spent. So there's no consistent method. It's just dependent upon what's happening politically. So like right now, if you were to look at the political landscape and what's changed at the federal government level, I'm sure you may or may not know this, but like the best sources to get federally are ARC and HUD EDI. Those provide you the two most flexibility where your timelines do exist, but there's leniency there. And the expenditures of those funds are much broader than, say, other sources that you may have gone for with the USDA, for example. Because everything has some sort of like outcome or impact that you need to explain it to. So in their case, if you get like a HUD EDI, I'm just speaking federally now, or ARC is a little bit more specific, but let's say you got a HUD EDI granted $5 million. Well, you could start spending that on full architectural construction drawings. I mean, you certainly have to like bid it, but by getting to the full construction level drawings with architects and engineers, that allows you to then get financing, because then you have a construction contract to start to shop out what that price could be, should you lock up that financing. By getting those term sheets, you then could be applying for another grant, say like AMLR, if it's at the state level where they want to be the last money in, like wink, wink, but knowing that you still have other sources that are committed and not necessarily drawn upon. But like this one here, this Ohio one, this is an interesting one where we're actually being forced to spend the state-awarded brownfield remediation program like now. There's no more, it's a first-come, first-served basis. It was awarded to a CDC, a nonprofit. They've had 3 executive directors change, so there's just no decision-making happening. But because it's first come, first serve, the state is going to claw that money back.
So they have
And you're not going to find another $2 million in grant money to take care of asbestos and all that stuff that's there. But the good thing about that is that it's forcing us to then take down other subsidies with it through a bridge loan mechanism to like sort of deal with 3 grants at once,
Okay.
and then kind of have a clean structure at the end of it. So that all you're doing is then getting the construction loan and not trying to explain to a lender how the 8 other subsidies work that are hyper-local to the city of Cleveland.
Cool.
Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
It's usually from start of getting your first funding source to finish, you could expect anywhere from 18 to 24 months
For sure.
to get it all together once you have that like first concept. So like that Gateway one, it's like not even, it's barely halfway funded, but with the change that's happened, there's no new subsidy coming its way until you show that you made a milestone to spend what you have had, but that you're not leaving the project at a place that's like, oh, well, now we just have like this graveyard of a site that's never going to happen. So, you know, in that one, you'll be probably doing your foundation packages and all the like risks of like coming out of the ground since it's on an abandoned mine.
So what methods do you use to collect community input right when you're starting?
Well, that's a good question. All the traditional ones that everybody does, because older demographics are familiar with that in-person engagement. So your town halls, you know, Survey Monkeys. There's a tool that we use for to try to make it more fun called Mentimeter. Like we did for Gateway in the Capitol Theater, there was a few hundred people that showed up, and it's like live polling. But now that like really AI has emerged in the last really the last year, and those plugins are becoming easier and easier, we're experimenting with a couple of universities to have almost like an AI wall where you're talking to this thing and it's saying like, well, what do you want to see, like what kind of place, and you're just dumping your thoughts, and then it'll triage and sort of prioritize what type of experiences you're looking for. So I have not rolled that out yet, but that's like an example of something where I'm trying to find a way to always engage the youngest demographic possible.
In real time.
Because by the time you get through this and build it, that's really who you're serving. So it's not that all of our opinions don't matter because we're going to use it too, but I'm trying to get to like the 18 and under demographic. So a good example of that would be, I'd love to like have an interface that they want to use. It's not a survey, because they don't, even if you partner with a school and circulate a survey, they don't take it. Even if you give them like an incentive, they haven't. So how do you find a gamified, fun way to partner with the school and then create an interface that they want to use? But then you don't just like randomly say, I'm having a community meeting. There's like I have an external marketing company where we'll do a whole PR campaign just to like hype up getting that data and doing it from people that will usually last like a 90-day cycle. We'll also do targeted digital campaigns where you're putting financial, gift card type of incentives out there for whatever demographic you're missing, like as a result of that town hall. So I think in this one, we were missing, we had pretty much like every demographic except for like the 22 to like 35-year-old. So we did a series of like LinkedIn digital campaign targeted ads just to get them to just get like 300 data points, so that you were completing that data set to see if that trend had a difference than what we had already organically received. But all of it, you keep going until you get a good sample set. You want at least 1,000.
So I think when we met, we talked to you about like a bunch of different things that are going on in Lower Greenmont, and the one that we kind of have control over is this block of land that we're hoping to do housing on. And so I think that's the most obvious place that we would ask for feedback. But we've also got another section where we're putting in a park, or the city is rather, but we kind of accumulated that land and are working together on that. And then there are some other things that have been raised in the community for years, like, oh, there's this big brownfield property down there that has a lot of potential, but nobody has it under control yet. We don't know exactly what it looks like. There's the potential for a whitewater feature or some sort of play feature, maybe not whitewater, in the creek right next to it. So lots of different ideas have come out. What would you do when we're like throwing all this potential at you and we want to get community feedback? Like, how would you wrap all that up and ask what they would like to see?
This is going to sound silly, but probably do like a visioning session with the leaders behind those initiatives that are providing those ideas to establish a why. Just like I gave mine, like a mission of the project and why you're even doing it. Establish some core values behind it, rules for decision making and your goals. Promote that as sort of like a kickoff as a PR campaign, and say we're doing something cool here. You're not committing to any of those ideas. You're saying these are the things that have happened. Let's really hone in on, is it whitewater? Is it a whitewater fund feature? Is it whatever these things are? And let those priorities from that big, broader like PR community engagement campaign, prioritize those. And then that'll reveal how much land you need. How much housing? Where does the idea of housing come from? Just the feeling that people say we need housing, right? Well, how much housing? Is it 80% AMI? Is it 100% AMI? Like, affordable means 27 different things to 27 different people. So just trying to find a way to take away all of the unknowns in that community engagement campaign, so that like whomever is putting together those initial plans, like, isn't guessing, and making something that's not hitting the mark where you're never going to get the support. Because by doing that process, you'll have, how many people live in Morgantown? I presume you have at least 1,000 data points, even if people don't live directly in that community, of what that community could become. Sure. Send that to your state reps and your senators and your congress people, and they're gonna advocate for you, because you've made their job easy to be able to say, all right, we're putting 100 affordable housing units here. Affordable means 80% AMI.
So Jeff, I can just to clarify what you said. So you try to look at that bigger picture first, then go down to the site-specific projects, get that game plan, and then go.
Yeah. It's not revolutionary, but it's like, that's the part that, like, if you think that part of it through and create a really strategic, like, anybody can do it. Like, I'll give you all my stuff for you to do. It's just the effort of doing it is where it's like, oh man, this is gonna take forever, and it does. I mean, the campaigns usually run like 90 to 120 days, but it makes it so easy, like when you're trying to make a decision around like how many units to build if it's a housing one, or, you know, a lot of times these communities don't have anything, like if you were to write a market study, like save the money, you're not gonna get a data point that supports what you're looking for to get a bank loan. So your data actually starts to inform the market study whenever you get to that point of needing it. So that the person who's certifying the market study is then using your data points and injecting that into their report, because they're gonna just go on CoStar, drop a pin, look at what has happened, and you're gonna get something that you already know. Happens this project's a great example. This is like 10 minutes walkable from the zoo, but there hasn't been a new housing development built in 100 years. So all they have are Class C apartments that are like completely dilapidated, where landlords didn't maintain them. Therefore, their rents are low, or so like, oh, they're affordable, great, but they're shitty spaces. I don't know if this is public or not, but like, they're not nice. They're not high quality housing that even if you want to offer an affordable product, you would want somebody to live in. So that's an irrelevant data point, because that's not why people want to build something. So going back to that why, people in that community want high quality housing that reflects what they believe about their neighborhood. I'm like going way on a tangent now, but that's the answer, is the your campaign. Because from what I remember, you have such a vast number of directions you can go with such a vast amount of land. I don't think you're going to be able to pull it all off at one time, right? But then those priorities, you might do a lot of it, but you'll pick a phase one based off of what people are telling you they want. And put all your energy behind achieving that, then you have the momentum of doing it. And then you do phase two, because you succeeded on phase one. Otherwise, you just keep making plans and never go anywhere.
Anybody else have questions?
So, yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here with everybody. I haven't been to Morgantown in a while. It's beautiful, honestly. It's really cool to see the energy and how, like, whenever the school's in session. I think the other time I was here, it was like dead because school was out of session. But a lot of new restaurants and things have popped up here. So, congrats to the success that you're having here.
Thanks. Yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Brad, for coming.
All right, nice meeting everybody. I didn't bring a bunch of cards, but if you have any follow-up questions, just email me, and happy to help you all in any way I can.
Hey, Brad, did you want to say anything?
No, I think what I could add to what Jim was saying was, he didn't talk about Willing Gateway very much, but that was very community-driven in terms of community input. And ultimately, that project itself was, almost every part about it was driven by community, by the data points the tipping point had pulled together. We probably should have had a couple better renders of it. But there's some connectivity to the rail trail down below that was 40 feet below the site that the community wanted, view sheds of the river, and obviously the suspension bridge was very important. I think another great aspect from some of our meetings were, they wanted the visitor center to be obviously a main beacon, but not overshadow the bridge. So that whole design is driven around the center of the large bridge pier there. So it's not overshadowing the bridge. Like, these were all things that Tipping Point really gathered information through the community. And how many data points did you have on that, Jim? Do you remember the number?
It was like 209,000.
Wow.
And that was across the entire country. I mean, it wasn't,
data points.
obviously, the majority of the data points came from, sort of the tri-state area right there. But there were people that were interested in those surveys through his, marketing of that survey, that people that lived in Wheeling that were now in California. I mean, they were all over the entire country. So it was kind of interesting to see the different ideas and data points, and the Changemaker hub that they had put together which you can probably find it's
It's
still
still,
on the website.
yeah, it's still up. You just.
But people actually would get engaged and get on there and share, pin different
Yeah, they're uploading
photos and ideas. And sure, sometimes you get to things that are like way out there in left field. I mean, you're going to get those things.
Well, did you encounter conflict with that too? Like, how did you manage community conflict with the?
Yeah, I got a lot of photos of dumpsters that are on fire. The city's a
Yeah.
dumpster fire, and why are we wasting our resources on something like this?
Because I feel like when you do a project like this, a lot of
I didn't
times.
publish those.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, when you do something like this, a lot of times I feel like you have people who are like, we want a suspension bridge. And then you have people who are like, we never want to see a suspension bridge. And so it's like, a lot of times maybe there's like conflicting interests. And so did you just go with majority, generally speaking?
I think part of the comments like that, and I'll give you a great example. As we were going through the planning of this, it had to go to the State Historic Preservation Office. And well, of course, the suspension bridges, if you're familiar with Wheeling, you could never see the suspension bridge because there's been a hotel in front of it for the last 50 years. And well, basically ever since the bridge was built, there was always something on that corner. So we go to the Historic Preservation Office, and they're like, well, this isn't historical. The building needs to be at the front of the site to block the suspension bridge. But, I think taking all of the data points that Tipping Point gathered, created that argument of this is what the community wants. And I think there was I think it was an architect that was from Wheeling that lived out of state. He kept insisting that hotel should remain.
To save the old hotel.
To save the old hotel. And, using the other data points that, allows you to kind of get around some of those comments.
Like a narrative becomes kind of clear and, yeah.
So you have detractors, but the hype of the positive stuff, we
Yeah.
got it out.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we didn't purposely delete any of the detractors, other than things that were blatantly insulting,
Sure.
racist, whatever.
Right,
That we're not gonna put our brand behind.
right. Okay.
So like,
Overall, though, with that many data points, there weren't that many comments that I was aware of that were kind of, the derogatory type things.
Sure.
I think the engagement keeps positivity to it. It's when you don't have the engagement, when people feel like they aren't being listened to.
Yeah.
Or have the opportunity to speak, is when those comments come out. Because they're like, oh, they're just gonna do whatever they want anyway. Why are you gonna ask?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of Jim's, model too, is keep engagement going. Just don't have a community meeting, then go away and do whatever you want.
show that
Show the progress as things have went forward, and I think his marketing team does a great job of promoting those things and creating press releases and things to keep the community abreast of, progress. Everybody, you go to a meeting and you're excited about something, you don't hear about it for 2 years, you're like, why would I go to the next one? It's useless.
Yeah.
Well, so one thing we've talked about with this housing project potential is like showing the community some possibilities, imagery. Like, do you have any advice on like how we go about putting that together? And
I would do it as a team of like what people like, and just almost like make enough of a library to start with and have them vote on those. That's how this one started with the photos. And then there was a pre-populated library based off of what people were articulating by words. Because what you're putting in a survey or writing is different than what you're seeing in your head. So it's like, okay, we want, I don't know, I'm going to make up a trail connection. Or access to the water was one that kept coming up. Well, does that mean literally like just trying to connect down to the water? Or are you actually talking about like making improvements to the trail? Or are you talking about getting into the water? So that we pulled 4 pictures of each of those types of experiences that we thought they wanted to see which one would reveal the day. And the primary one was connection from 40 feet down to the water, which of course is like the most expensive part of the project. But that's what was then funded in public subsidy, was show me that we're doing this connection, and then we'll go from there. We'll figure it out. And that's all the money that's been raised, that's what it's been going towards. But what was cool is like people were prioritizing like what materials they wanted to see based off of previous industry. So like
Oh, yeah.
glass versus brick and things like that. And then their job was easy. You're not fighting it. You're just doing it. And
And I think too, if you talk about just housing, it's, I think you get stuck on, you say, well, what type of housing do you want? Is that, and you think of big apartment buildings, or you think of little patio homes, or townhomes, or single family homes. And I think that's only one piece of it. It's a life experience. What else is in that community or accessible to you? What amenities are there? I think looking at the very big picture first is very important. And then, getting a feel for what types of housing people are looking for, I think is, almost sort of the second part.
Okay.
This one actually went to a bunch of hospital workers, because there's a hospital across the street, and that's like, it's probably the same with WVU Medicine, but like, the high quality housing piece is like directly tied to their ability to attract people to come to work at like a neighborhood like this. And none of they responded to the questions that were targeted to like the living experience, but all of the open-ended opportunities end up going into like what else they wanted in the neighborhood. So it was interesting because we were trying to figure out how big to make the units, and 2 bedrooms, 2 baths and all that, which again, was the answer that we got, but it revealed a different opportunity of other experiences that they weren't getting where they were currently living, that this neighborhood could have fostered. So then you grab onto that part of it, celebrate it. So to your point, if you keep celebrating all the like positive things that come out of those, the detractors go away.
Yeah.
And in this project, there's like a group of people when it first started that wanted to save this like triangular building that had an underground storage tank on it that was collapsing in like from the 50s. But the only way to access the tank was to like scrape that part of the building off to then like lift it. So you're demolishing it anyway just to do the remediation. Again, it was like a safety hazard too. They were fighting it hard. But then as you continue to do that community stuff of what would replace it, they're non-existent. There's like 7, and the city basically sent them a letter like, we're city landmarks from Cleveland. It's like, we're doing this, we're demolishing this. This is a historic district, and we have HUD, we have SHPO, and we have the National Park Service signing off on doing this because it's like what will make a healthy community here to have, what's going to be in this place. So, but that took 11 months
Sure.
to win that battle strategically. You're not stopping the project over it. You're just continuing to tell the public why you're doing things. And
Where they say a project dies 100 deaths before it gets built. It's always a problem, right? Jim?
yeah, right. And again, like going back to losing this funding source for brownfields, like I don't even know how this was going to close. I cannot tell you how the back half of this is going to close until I take that part of it down, because that outcome will inform that closing. But it won't go anywhere if I try to solve for something I can't control. Which is scary. But these projects are hard. That's why you don't have like a bunch of people doing commercial. So just know you really have to lock arms and like be in it. So, but yeah, again, appreciate your time. If you think of anything else, just give me a call, and I'm here to help. And I can even give you examples if you're trying to create a community survey just of some of these projects that you might want to incorporate for your own. Like I said, what I'm doing is not rocket science. It's just effort.
That'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll leave your thumb drive here, or I'll plug this back in. But
Thank you, sir.
do it. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you all want to say anything about that before we move on?
Thanks for bringing them in.
Yep.
Nice presentation.
Okay. We'll go on to reports of officers and directors. Does anybody have anything? Nope. Okay. Committees, property management did not meet, resource development did not meet. What about city and underutilized properties? No. Okay. So I think we're on to report of staff, and Jamie's not here, so I guess it's you, Ricky.
Just two announcements before we get into unfinished business, but I'd like to introduce and welcome our new city planner, Seth Cardwell.
Hi.
Seth, you want to tell the team a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Nice to meet all of you. I'm Seth Cardwell. Today is my 4th day here, so I'm finishing up my first week. I previously worked at the Northern West Virginia Brownfields Assistance Center. I live over in Greenmont on Clark Street, but I've been in Morgantown for about 5 years now.
And he just recently passed his AICP Kent exam, so congratulations to
I was
that as
ready
well.
to burn the notebook, but I figure I should keep it for myself.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
And the only other announcement, and then we've talked about this, but the next property management meeting on December 1st, we will have the side lot program. We'll share that next week with the committee, as well as how Caitlin and I kind of looked at the disposition of property and the criteria that would be used to sort them into different buckets. We will share all that next week in time for our meeting on December 1st.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Ryan, do you have anything?
Well, in Jamie's absence, she asked if I would present to the agency on the new ordinance. I know that it's a new business item. I'm actually supposed to be somewhere at 5:15. Would you all mind if I run through that during the report section? And the action item for you would be recommendations on who you would like to have appointed to which term, so you can take that up in new business.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you. So the ordinance changes that were recommended by the agency to City Council were adopted by City Council ordinance last month, largely unchanged from the recommendations of the agency. Basic purposes were, after your review of best practices and successes of other land reuse agencies that were operating, to adjust board member organization and some qualifications to integrate operations more closely with the city and promote more efficient acquisition, management, transfer of property. So the ordinance was adopted with an effective date January 31 of next year. The main change is a new board composition. There will be 6 voting members appointed by City Council, and then there will be the city manager will also be a voting member, so you'll achieve that integration that way. As you know, there are 6 current members appointed, so you all will have an opportunity, I think, to continue serving, but you'll be appointed to new terms under this ordinance. In addition to the voting members, there are several non-voting members who serve by virtue of their office. City attorney, development director, or designee, a city council member. Councilor Downs has been chosen by the city council to serve on the board. Fairmont Morgantown Housing Authority director and the Montgomery County Development Association director, or either of those could choose a designee. The qualifications of the members were modified a bit in the ordinance. They were condensed from 5 experience categories to 4, preserving all of the same experience areas, but requiring that at least one member have each of the qualifications presented. I can go through that list, but it's in your packet. It should make appointments a little easier for council going forward. One change that City Council made, term limits were suggested by the agency but not approved in the council ordinance. They would like the opportunity to force you all to continue serving term after term. So there will be, because of the board reorganization, there will be 6 new terms beginning January 31. Council will have to make those appointments. They are staggered so that in the future the board won't turn over all at once. There are 2 one-year terms, 2 two-year terms, and 2 three-year terms. I think City Council and City Manager would be interested in, if you all have recommendations among yourself about which of you, if you are interested in continuing to serve, would be interested in this very term. And that's the whole thing. Do you all have questions for me? Nice to meet you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up we have meeting minutes from August to approve. Does anybody have any changes to those?
My last name is not Satterfield.
What is, I didn't hear that.
My last name is not
Oh,
Satterfield.
geez,
It
okay,
appears that
gotcha.
David and I are brothers in crime here, but we're not.
We got
That's the
you.
way it is.
Sorry about that.
You should be so. I claim him. That's
All
fine.
right. Any other changes to the August? How about September? Any changes to those? All right, do we have a motion to approve those?
So
two?
moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, now on to unfinished business. So I think these items here have just been carrying forward from month to month. So Ricky, do you want to just give us your update?
Yeah, so as you are probably aware, 570, 635, and 637 are down. So those have been seeded and strawed, and we're requesting payment from the state reimbursement for those projects through the DLAP program. 300 Overdale Street is the next one that's going to be up, and that's going to be using general fund dollars to take that property. That project has already been bid, and we will be awarding that shortly as well. And then just to jump ahead maybe a little bit to the board action items, but several other properties that were recently bid out and awarded include 121 Kingwood Avenue. That will be coming down, as well as 440 Brockway. So you'll see some more demolition taking effect along Brockway Avenue on the, I guess, southern side of the street going forward.
So was the Kingwood one donated to us, or?
I defer to Mr. Simonton on that. I don't think it's been completed, but we are going to.
You're taking it down regardless?
Regardless, it's been there for 20 years, so
Yeah,
we're
cool.
going to take it down.
Okay.
We'll work through the rest of, if we get to acquire it or not. But that would be my report on the demolition.
Okay. So you don't have anything else under unfinished then?
Oh, item B, just a few updates, yes. As you are aware, and thanks to Caitlin working on this with our communications team and IT, we do have the shared drive set up. You all should have access to it now. If you don't, let us know and we can work to make that happen, but everybody should have access to the shared drive.
Could you all send an email with a link to it?
Yeah, you should have gotten a link, like as soon as he set it up. Did you not receive
No.
that? Okay, we'll make sure that you guys all get a link. And I've preloaded some stuff on there too.
Okay.
So yes, that is set up and ready to go.
Awesome, thank you.
So when we can continue to send your packets through email, or just let you know that it's available
Yeah.
in that shared drive, and then you'd be able to click and see the agenda items, the meeting packets, whatever preference you want, and we can discuss that later, but that will be available through the shared drive now. One other thing, working with communications, is we do have a Facebook page that's almost ready to go.
Okay.
And so we'd like to meet with property management on December 1st, and the communications team will be there to talk through some of those things about how we manage it going forward and what the expectations are. So hopefully we can knock that out at our next meeting as well.
Okay.
And then, let me see, the other thing, and I appreciate Mr. Ambrose being here and giving this presentation. We had talked as a board about doing a listening session or getting some more feedback from the Greenmont neighborhood before we move forward with any part of developing a prospectus for the properties that the agency already has. I still think and agree, and we've discussed this before as a team, we do need that, I think, that bigger level, here's what the whole area looks like, and that buy-in from that. But to keep that project moving forward, we will work in the beginning of the new year to have a meeting with the Greenmont Neighborhood Association and say, tell us what you envision for this community to get the ball rolling.
So I didn't feel like we were saying the prospectus had to wait. I thought we didn't want to put this prospectus out until we got community feedback, but I think we could be building the prospectus right now.
There were certain
Because-
components that we could work on, but in terms of telling the narrative, I think we, at least that was what I took away from the conversation. We needed to have that input before we really were able to fully develop the perspective.
I mean, I think you're right. We have to say, like, the community wants this kind of project,
Right.
right? But
Not
there could
here's
be,
the-
like, the base level stuff
Right.
could happen in between,
Can't be
right?
finalized,
Correct.
but we can review everything but the target
So
population.
the data points, some things that point to, okay.
So I did get an email from Teresa, I can't remember her last name. What's
Ambatizzi.
Yeah, and what's the name of the entity? Yeah.
Neighborhood, yes. They're in
Neighborhood's
Riverview.
something very generic, but they were the company that we talked to out of Ohio that does nonprofit housing developments, and she said that they are working on their Ohio projects right now, and they will switch over to West Virginia in February. So then they will look at our site and see if it's a feasible project. I don't know if we want to go forward with that, but I just wanted you all to know that that's kind of the timeline she laid out. And so if we could have these community meetings and a prospectus before that, then we would at least be in a position to say, we've considered what you have and we want to stop here and get some more feedback, or go ahead and see what you think. I don't know, but it just seems like February seems like a doable timeline.
For when they need to start working on their, yep.
Yeah, so if we could have the community meeting before that
Oh,
and,
for sure.
okay.
I think we could start compiling some of the visual materials that we would bring to that community meeting now too. Like what things would be sharing that we would be asking people to weigh in on.
I mean, what do you guys think about his suggestions for surveys and I mean, I feel like it would be nice if we had somebody like him who could do it, but of course that costs money. I don't know how much that part would cost, but it would be nice to have somebody help with that campaign, I think.
Yeah.
We should
Survey is
have-
good.
We should take advantage of as many means by which to collect feedback as, really doable and feasible. So I think surveys are certainly easy enough to do. I mean, the hard work's in putting the survey together. Once the survey's together, then, you put it out and make it available, and it's easy enough, and the city does those almost annually, so that seems like low-hanging fruit. Community meetings,
Yeah, I think in-person voting on stuff at a community
And the-
meeting where you're tangibly like looking at a picture of something and putting a vote on something, that type of thing can be interactive and helpful and,
Yeah, and then I think the last thing is kind of as is stakeholders, other stakeholders besides neighborhood associations, land bank,
FODC, too.
FODC, trails,
Rail trail.
yeah.
Boat Park, MRTC, I mean, all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, right. And meeting with those stakeholders, the Board of Education is down there kind of adjacent, so.
Well, so what if we rough out a timeline?
Yes,
Because
that's what I was
I think we need to nail some of this down so we don't keep saying we'll do that next. When are the neighborhood association meetings?
Last Mondays.
Yeah, the next Greenmont one, Ricky's gonna be at, and I'll be out of town, but Ricky and Danielle are gonna be there, and talking about this, right?
That's
So-
the plan.
And so I think that's a good opportunity. It's December 1st, I think.
We'll be talking about opportunities to allow for.
Oh,
commercial-
that's right, the overlay,
Overlay district
the
for
overlay,
the
right.
neighborhood.
Yeah, so a little bit different, but maybe I'm sure there would be great interest in talking about this. And maybe we can.
We also
start-
need to circle with them about the park because there are lots of questions there. So just a little bit more information, I think. We had that meeting, everybody knows it's like possible, but I've gotten multiple questions about where that stands and what's happening next. So not to muddy the waters, just putting that out there. But so then if we're gonna, do you want to piggyback on the meeting you're already talking about, or do you want to schedule for January?
I think it's up to Ricky.
I don't think we'd be ready to do that quickly. And I also agree with the coming up with a timeline and engaging the stakeholders beforehand, kind of coming up with maybe those principles about what we think. Because I think we're building towards the area plan that we've talked about numerous times. That's what this is all building to, right? The engagement now is to really help us, I think, get the perspectives, get that out and going, right, with respect to the property. But that larger conversation, I think we should engage more stakeholders now and then build towards launching that kind of a campaign. But
And I've kind of roughed out a project plan, kind of a roadmap, and I wouldn't call it a project plan, but it's a roadmap that, I'd love to walk through with folks, not now, but at some point. I think it's important that we, there becomes an authoritative kind of roadmap or plan that is being sought after, and that there are timelines and people, or groups or teams that are assigned to working on each one. Otherwise, we're going to spin our wheels.
So do we think we want to have the meeting with the neighborhood association first and then stakeholders after, or vice versa?
I don't know that it matters.
Yeah, I don't think there's a harm in trying to do something in January.
Yeah.
For both groups?
Yeah.
Or together?
Yeah, I mean, we can meet with the association as well, start engaging some of these stakeholders.
I imagine with, the holidays in December, that Greenmont's going to likely slip that meeting until after New Year's. So that would work. It
Do
would
you know
just
what
be
the
the
date it will be
beginning.
in January?
I don't know, because that's going to be, that's going to
Oh,
be up
they're
to the
not, like, set?
neighborhoods. No, it's
Okay.
not scheduled. Right now, it's scheduled, like Adelheid said, the last Monday of the month, every month. But considering, that's going to, I don't know what date that falls in December, but more than likely, I think it's going to slip until after New Year's, based
It's on
on
the
people
29th right now, but yeah.
Okay.
Could get pushed to the 5th, maybe.
With people traveling, I imagine it's going to get pushed, but it may or may not.
I think we should also have just some prepared, sort of a statement of, here's where we've come to this point, that would explain, for anybody that's interested, that maybe could be converted into a news release about, here's what the agency has done, here's the number of properties that have been acquired, the number that have been demolished, the amount of public funding that's gone into this project so far, and that the agency is now at a point where they're going to invite public input. And so, getting that out there just beyond our own bubble,
That's a good
I think
idea.
would set people up so they'll think, oh, when I see the announcement of that meeting, I want to go to it.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Just some sort of preamble to our meetings.
That's a good, yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So maybe we could aim for that sort of statement to go out in December, and then meetings to happen in January with both stakeholders and neighborhood association.
I think we have the plan, right, to hit January and go.
Okay, all right. Does that sound good to everybody? What do you have to say?
Do you guys,
I'm not, well, it sounds like that, if you guys support it, that's what we should do. I'm ex officio.
Well, what do you think?
I think that sounds great.
You're here for an opinion. You're here to bring your
Yeah.
I know,
opinion.
that's why I was smirking though, and you asked why I was smirking. I think that sounds great.
Okay, cool.
do you guys imagine that meeting in January or at the end is, do you imagine that's one where people have taken a survey at that point, or are we sharing some visual materials at that meeting, or what do you guys imagine that is looking like?
Jamie suggested we go forward with some must-haves versus wants.
Yeah.
And that we sort of differentiate everything, not prepare a blank slate necessarily, but,
Right.
Identify what some of the sort of broad agreements are about priorities and
Yeah.
some
Okay.
other things that are more malleable.
I mean, there are things that are in sort of play, I think. We've already said, here's the green
Yes.
space coming, what do you want that to look like? There's the pedestrian bridge, which the city told us they were working on, trying to figure that out, like from the SE's green space across to the pump track area. I don't know what else we want to throw out there. We want to definitely talk about the housing piece. We should probably throw out the Whitewater thing too, or let's not. What do we call it?
I'm calling it the same
Water park.
thing.
Lazy
Water
River.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, water park, okay. I mean, I think we should bring up these big concepts, some of which.
I'm sorry, and
Go
ask
ahead.
what people think about all of this.
Yes.
And all in the same,
We're wanting to know what
Yeah.
they think about the project as a concept, or what it may look like, and all that stuff,
I think more how it fits in with the
No.
neighborhood, like at a really high level. Do we want all of this? Is this all appropriate?
just want to make sure we're
Did-
getting feedback that was valuable to.
Did I hear you all say at a previous meeting that we needed more specifics about what affordable housing meant to this neighborhood before?
I think we want to
Deciding
ask
on
them
that?
what kind
What
of
kind of housing they want.
dynamic they
Yeah.
are interested in there, yes.
So getting specifics on the affordable housing.
I think we can touch on all those, but I don't know if we want to get to a survey yet, where that gets put out and we get the feedback, because that might come at a later stage where we're in a more
No,
Yeah.
involved planning process.
think-
I'm only asking so
Yeah.
that when we
They
get.
will, if you're talking about a survey to get the specifics of what target population for the housing, the developer will need that in February. So surveys, so surveys or community meetings have to determine that, however we're going about it, really in January.
I mean, if he will give us a copy of his survey, and I will follow up and ask for it, I mean, if we could put that out within the next couple months, I think they could go together nicely. It does seem like it'd be
And
helpful.
there are levels of
to have both.
granularity that you can get to, right?
Right, there-
You just don't want to subject people to survey fatigue either,
Right,
so.
yeah.
I mean, we don't know what his survey looks like or what it asks
Yeah,
yet
so I
either,
think it'd be
so-
useful to see a survey.
And just making sure that the expectations, because if we collect this information, people are going to expect us to, okay, this is what the consensus was, right? So, I think, yeah, to the counselor's point about the degree or levels of which the survey is written. is important.
Well, I mean, I guess it's like, at some level, you kind of want this general feedback on like, what are you excited about in your neighborhood? Like, are you really excited about seeing a lazy river, or you don't care about that at all, and you want something
Right.
else? Like, maybe you just really want new sidewalks. Like, I just feel like we need that kind of, like, what's really important to you right
Caitlin has
now?
some
Zoomed all the way out, kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think
okay.
it's also important to put some imagery. I mean, people react better if you put some imagery out there too. Right? You know, you just don't put the blank question and say, oh, is it gonna be like this? Is this a part,
Right.
like Jim's point, I mean, it's
Yeah.
very valid. It's, you know, people react
Showing,
to.
yeah, showing quality affordable housing as opposed
Yeah.
to the very worst that people picture.
Yeah,
That's important.
okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I guess I feel like we could take all the stuff that we kind of know is like boiling around and ask them,
How do you feel, and then show some imagery and kind of, okay.
yeah, like here are
To get
3
the
different ways
feedback.
that could go. Like, how do you react to that? Or I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
What, feel, say some things here.
No, I think you're right. I think the more, we need to give them choices, don't just make it absolutely just
Yeah.
blank
Oh,
slate.
absolutely.
We'll
Yes.
get so confused with so much feedback that's not targeted.
nothing.
Or nothing. We need like specifics.
That's why I was,
But also sort of a broad overall perspective of what we want the neighborhood to be. So we're gonna have to like actually put this together in a way where, as a community, we would like these things. And then in this particular space, we would like to see this thing. Or we want more commercial spaces, we want more eateries, we actually want more housing. Maybe they don't even want housing.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Right.
they want.
Yeah.
And we're talking about housing because that's what we know the community needs, but that doesn't mean that they want it at all. So you need to have all of these options.
yeah, it'd
Not
be great
just-
if there's a way we could do it, so it's almost a workshop, so that people are
Yeah.
kind of going through different stations throughout it, and kind of maybe giving more generalized feedback in some places, and maybe more specific feedback in other parts, and, yeah, okay.
Is it possible to take over the Greenmont meeting in this way?
Oh, for sure.
Or do,
Reach out to them.
or, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and if it's something where we need more space too, we can always make that happen too, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It is still wrong. That's wrong.
Okay, good. All right, so this meeting went really long. Okay, do we have anything else on this list, Ricky?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I think we just need to, we have a resolution that we need to approve.
Correct.
And then we also have to talk about the board terms. It sounds like everybody wants to hear how long each of you would like to serve or not as we get reappointed. Do you want to just email your preferences to me? Okay.
So
All
that's
right.
what's gonna have that, you'll just email and, okay.
Yeah, and I'll share with you, or CC Ricky and I both, or whatever is easy.
Survey.
All right, so let's move on to the resolution. We're authorizing the city manager to act on behalf of the agency to manage real estate. So when things come up at 430 Spruce Street, they can execute leases, negotiate, et cetera. I think that we thought we already did this, and maybe we did it verbally, but we didn't have an actual ordinance, so this is just writing that down and memorializing that for the record. So anyone want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. I don't believe we need to go into executive session, so I think we'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless anyone has anything else.
Make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.